to the first of hopefully many Kapihan series of the Department of International Studies. So for this afternoon, we will be having the topic titled Korean Culture, Politics, and Society with two of our outstanding faculty members. We have Ms. Marian Gongora and of course Associate Dean Mark Ysla. So the two faculty members that we have would be talking about the origin and spread of Hallyu and the, of course, society and culture that is present in South Korea. So without further ado, may I call on Mr. Francis Esteban, the program head of the Department of International Studies, to give us the rationale for this program. Sir.
All right. Thank you very much, Wayne. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to our colleagues. Good afternoon to our students, and good afternoon, of course, to our guests within FEU, and also I believe we have also guests from outside of FEU. So today we'll have a very interactive and a very informal discussion, so that we can really make it intimate and engaging with all of the participants. So the idea of the Faculty Kapihan Series, or the Department of International Studies Faculty Kapihan Series, is basically to showcase the different interests and specializations of our outstanding faculty members. So for our first episode today will feature two of the Koreanist scholars of our department, Ms. Marian Gongora and Mr. Mark, or Associate Dean Mark Ysla, both of which specializes in studying Korean culture, politics, and society, as well as the relationship of Korea to other countries, particularly the Philippines. Both of them experience living in Korea. So therefore, I'm very confident and I'm very excited to hear from their sharing, from their talks this afternoon. So without further ado, I would like to welcome all of you. I hope you guys will enjoy. I hope your cups of coffees are all ready now. Maybe next time we'll get your address. Kunin namin ang mga address niyo, and then subukan namin padalang kayo ng mga coffee next time. Para maging kapihan talaga ito. Nevertheless, I hope everyone would enjoy this fruitful discussion, sharing among friends, colleagues, and students. So welcome everyone, and have a great afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Francis. So as Sir Francis mentioned, this series would be a little bit more informal, and we would be talking more with each of the faculty members of the department. So I think I don't have to give a very, very long speech. No? Let us call on Miss Marian Gongora. Ma'am.
Okay. Ano ba to? Sorry. Wait lang. How do I share again? Share screen. Okay.
Hello po.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. 안녕하세요. So today I am discussing about the emergence, evolution, and expansion of Hallyu. I know here in the Philippines, Hallyu or Korean wave is a very popular phenomena. And so before we talk about what Korean culture is, which is more focused on Hallyu, I would like to give you a background on what Hallyu is. So what is Hallyu? Hallyu actually began in the 90s when the TV dramas were first exported in East Asia, specifically in China. It was during the Asian financial crisis where in 1997, What is Love was first shown in China. And after that, a star was also shown, and it really gained a lot of popularity in China. And after that, it was the time wherein many of the Korean cultural products were also Korean idols started performing, and also Korean food started becoming popular in China, and also Korean cars started becoming popular in China then. So it really was the start of the Korean wave. That's why the Chinese media coined the term. So basically, you have to understand that the term Korean wave was not coined by the Koreans, but it was the Chinese media who coined it. To call this phenomena of popularity of the Korean culture. And also when it began, Hallyu was focused on the countries near Korea, China, Japan, and of course Southeast Asia to include the Philippines. Okay, let's move forward. So I would call it the Hallyu Way. So at the start of the Hallyu phenomena, we start with the introduction of TV dramas and then also film. And because of that, you have the popularity of the actors and actresses, which paved the way for music. And then after, of course, the music you have the idols, and then the fashion and the trends by the actors and actresses in the dramas and the film became also trends. And the beauty, of course, and how do they wear their makeup. And of course, because of that, also people started becoming interested to go to Korea. That's why there's tourism. You have also the popularity of food like samgyeopsal and other kinds of Korean food. You also have language and culture. After the popularity of the dramas, people started becoming interested in studying Korean language and also learn about Korean culture. And also, because of that, it paved the way to the popularity of technology. You have now the popularity of Samsung, LG, and other technology, and also the motor vehicles that are sold by Korean companies. Okay, so Hallyu and the Korean government, prior to the popularity of Hallyu, you have to understand that Korea underwent through a series of changes. It did not happen overnight. The popularity of Hallyu did not happen in just one click. It happened in a series of efforts by the government, by people, and even chaebols or the Korean conglomerates. In the 1980s, Korea faced pressures to open its market. And so people started wanting for more commercially competitive media production. They wanted their films, their dramas to become more competitive. And in 2000, in 1990s also, the Jurassic Park, the first film Jurassic Park was shown in Korea, and they noticed that in just one weekend, the Jurassic Park was able to gain a lot of money, and it can be equal to 15 million Hyundai cars. And that's why there were moves towards the production, for the improvement of the productions. That's why the government wanted the chaebols or the conglomerates to invest in the film industry through the motion picture promotion law. And also during this time, because during the financial crisis, they needed more money. The Korean government needed more money. So one of the strategies was to sell their dramas to neighboring countries. And since importing the dramas are cheaper than producing the dramas themselves, so the Korean dramas were imported by the other East Asian countries. Okay, so in the 1990s, again, there were demands for liberal public communication. So there were laws that were passed from the two major broadcasting companies that were owned by the government. They started opening it to other broadcasting stations. Now you have the sole broadcasting stations. Before it was just KBS and MBC. After the 1990, you already have the SBS, which is also a very popular TV. After that, they also opened the Cable Television Act. So we already have the cable TV. And as we know now, they have been producing a lot of Korean dramas that have been also popular for our audiences. And because there were a lot already who are producing the dramas, the companies started competing for audience attention. That's why they had to diversify their contents. They have to improve their topics. They started shooting in foreign locations, and they have to speed up their story flow and also improve their scripts and also the pictures. So they started improving in terms of the production itself of the dramas. So how did the Korean government use this? Okay, sorry. Okay, so we look at Hallyu 1.0 from 1995 to 2005. They said that it was primarily driven by TV dramas. As I've already mentioned, in China, it was through the What is Love and A Wish Upon a Star. And there was an evidence of an east-to-east flow, meaning within Asia. That's why the concept of Asianness, we find our cultural proximity. That's why we want to consume these dramas because we have the similar culture. And through the dramas, it paved also the way to the popularity of Korean groups such as HOT, Baby Vox, Shinhwa, Boa, and Rain. And some of the members of the were also the actors and actresses in the dramas. Like, for example, in Baby Vox, if you watch Coffee Prince, she was one of the members. Is Yun Lee. An example, Rain. Rain became a very popular actor also, who eventually became an actor in Hollywood. So they found that the exportation of Hallyu significantly contributed to the economy. So now they do not have to sell just cars. Now they do not just have to export their heavy and light industries, but they can also do it through the entertainment industry. Okay. So why did Korean dramas became popular? In China, it became popular because the Chinese society found that it was an opposite to their conservative society then. They found that, for example, in the story of What is Love, they were able to see how modern Korea then. And also, in terms of Daejeonggum or Jewel in the Palace, they found that there was cultural affinity. There were similar things that can be found in the series. While in Japan, they found that there was a feeling of nostalgia and the concept of pure love. And that was the entry of Korean culture into the Japanese market, which was really unknown before that. Yon-sama syndrome. When Bae-yong-joon went to Japan, he was really very popular, and they said the airport was really flocked by people, and this was really unknown, thinking that prior to that the relations was really not that good, and it was really very hard for Korean culture or cultural export to enter into the Japanese market, but it changed everything. Winter Sonata was the entry point to Japan. Okay, how about in the Philippines? So in 2003, we were not really that far in terms of the popularity. We were able to catch up here in the Philippines. But prior to the popularity of Korean dramas here in the Philippines, it was actually, we Filipinos used to consume much of the Latin American telenovelas. We have Marimar and all of these dramas, which are very sensual, very dramatic, and sometimes sad and heavy. But after ABS-CBN showed the adaptation, the Taiwanese adaptation of Meteor Garden, of the Japanese manga Boys Over Flowers, which is Meteor Garden, everyone started looking for new contents, looking at the Asian invasion, as they said. And the GMA noticed that it was really very popular, so they gambled. They gambled with the story of a bright girl in 2003, but it wasn't really. It really didn't. They were not able to compete with the popularity of Meteor Garden. And then they tried again through Endless Love, Autumn in My Heart, starring Song Sung-hoon, Song Hye-kyo, and of course Won Bin. And that became the start of the popularity of Korean dramas here in the Philippines. After that, Filipinos really had started to catch up in the Hallyu fever or the Korean wave. And then, of course, we noticed that during this time, how do we watch Korean dramas? We watch them through our Philippine free TV stations, specifically through ABS-CBN and GMA. And it was dubbed in Tagalog. And what happened is we usually have to wait for them to show the dramas. We have to wait for the next thing that will happen. It's so hard because we usually the shows usually start with a recap, and then it will be full of advertisements, and then after that it would be what will happen next. But so many people were really hooked into watching it. What's next? uh okay, and then we also have film. We call it My Sassy Girl. It also became very popular then. And eventually, I think many people during that time was able to watch My Sassy Girl, and it was even shown on Philippine cinema. So that was 2003. And after that, we find that here are some of the Filipino remakes of the Korean TV dramas. You have Kim Samsoon, Lovers in Paris, My Girl, Only You, Full House, My Love from the Star, and also Descendants of the Sun. And then we also have some OST translated into Filipino. You have, I believe, through from My Sassy Girl, Pag-ibig na Kaya, which was translated from Sarang Ingayo, from Gong or Princess. Okay. And then also, in terms of Philippine-Korean relations, in 2011, the Korean Cultural Center was opened here in the Philippines. Prior to that, the cultural aspect of the relations was mainly through the economic section of the Korean embassy. And they noticed that since popularity of Korean culture was really taking off in the Philippines, they started opening up the Korean Cultural Center, which is not something that they open in many countries. But they found that here in the Philippines, there is a big market, so let's open a Korean Cultural Center. And after that, they were able to organize a lot of cultural classes. So here are some. I place it here. And also Korean concerts. We have here a lot of Korean concerts. And last year, to celebrate the 70 years of the relations, the Korean government organized the K-pop friendship concert in Manila. And it wasn't the first time that they organized a concert. They have been inviting K-pop groups even before that, because they have found that there are a lot of Filipinos who are fans of Korean pop groups. So, and also we find that Koreatown in Angeles, Pampanga is already established, and not only in Koreatown in Angeles, we have a lot of Korean restaurants around in the Philippines now. So we can say that Hallyu is really alive and well in the Philippines. And even Ambassador Han during the concert admitted that he will really try to what's this? As he said, it is my job to galvanize the Korean cultural wave. So that was a big statement coming from him as a representative of Korean government to the Philippines, that they are really using Hallyu to further our relations here in the Philippines. So we also see that Hallyu 2.0, we find that from 2006 to 2015, I don't know if you are already fans of Korean dramas or K-pop culture during this time. In 2006, we find that there is already the concept of hybridity, globalization, and consumption. It was primarily driven by K-pop, unlike Hallyu 1.0, wherein dramas were the primary drivers. Here, it was K-pop. We find that we also have the concepts of localization. People are trying to, or they are trying to adopt to the local culture whatever they are presenting to the audiences. For example, the idols, they have to train in the local language. They have to speak Japanese, Chinese, even Thai, Indonesian, and sometimes even Filipino. They use those aspects, those skills of the Korean idols, so that they will be able to be more popular, and so that the people would be able to consume more of this phenomenon. So localization was spelled during 2.0, which is quite just near. And then it's also dubbed as the Neo-Korean wave because of the international expansion due to K-pop. We find that YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter contents are featuring all these groups. Because of that, also there was a faster expansion of the Korean culture through K-pop. We have channels. They have the YouTube channels. They conduct live broadcasts. We have websites like All K-pop, Soul K-pop, so that are usually in English. And then they are able to penetrate to Billboard chart, iTunes, and nowadays you have also Spotify. And then the consumers are now diverse, from middle-aged women, single women. Now they're able to find a younger generation to older generations. Everyone's already consuming not just K-pop, but Korean dramas and other Korean cultural contents. So during this time, it was Girls' Generation, Super Junior, Kara, Shiny, TVXQ, 2PM, Wonder Girls, FX, 21, and Big Bang, who were really the drivers of the Korean wave. Okay, and now long covers. And now 3.0 is characterized by a social media or multiculturalism. It's from 2016 to present. And now we find that they are really using social media platforms such as Instagram and Twitter. So to further their their um, their culture. And I'm sure if you are a fan, you have probably checked or followed the actors, actresses, the idols on these platforms, and they were able to use it also so that if they will be able to update their fans. Okay? And then also we have the digital fandoms. There are a lot of fans already that have started websites for the Korean actors and especially the idols. We also find that there is a diversification of the cultural exports. Now, even directors have been exported. Like for example, Snowpiercer here, a Hollywood film. The director is actually the director of Parasite. So in that kind of manner, Korea was able to expand already into the international scene, and even books like Please Look After Mom is a bestseller online for the books, and Ninja Assassin, for example, is by Rain. So those kind of things we are already are finding Koreans all over, and BTS especially, they were able to penetrate the US market. Okay? If we look at the Hallyu Way now, we find that it does not include anymore just a few. We also have now medical tourism. People go to Korea not just for plastic surgery, but also they go to Korea to learn about or get treatments from the traditional medicines. Also, you have online games, and now literature and motor vehicles became popular. So I think that ends my presentation. I hope you got something from my short and presentation, Sir Wayne.
Thank you, Miss Marian, for that overview of the Korean wave or Hallyu. Now, I'm sure everyone has a lot of questions or concerns regarding the first talk, but may I request everyone to simply take note of those questions for a while and probably type it in here sa Zoom, no? Or probably in Facebook Live. We will be reading and addressing them later on. Before we continue with our discussion, we are very happy to acknowledge the presence of our Senior Vice President for Corporate Affairs. We have Attorney Gianna Montinola of the Far Eastern University. Thank you for joining us, ma'am. Thank you for taking the time off, ma'am. For the next topic or for the next talk, we would be enlightened by our associate dean, Mark Ysla, to talk about the social or probably the society and culture of South Korea. So without further ado, let us welcome Sir Mark. Sir.
Okay, thank you, Wayne. Let me just share my PowerPoint presentation. So I think Marian was able to show us um, the good part of the um, Korean studies. Basically, when you talk about Korean studies, I think a majority of that would fall under the concept of Hallyu, right? Just to add, before I move on to my own lecture or presentation, let me just add to what Marian mentioned. So when I was there, I think the government is already conscious of the benefits that Hallyu can actually give to not just the society but also for the entire government structures. So what they did was they created the National Council for Nation Branding. So the National Council for Nation Branding is a collaboration among different industries, business, government, even universities. So the purpose of this is to help the Korean network overseas, and at the same time promote Korea as a tourism destination and to also boost the image of Korea as a country. So um, I was part of the initial batch of foreign students who kind of joined the National Council on Nation Branding to basically promote Korea. Okay, using blogs. At that time, blogs pa lang, wala pang hindi pa masyadong popular ang YouTube. Okay. So, um, at this point, I'm going to share some insights about the Korean society. So I'm going to talk about a brief overview of the Korean society, what are the influences, and then I'm going to share insights about, sorry, the current social trends and issues in Korea. So if you're going to characterize Korean society is a society that experienced compressed modernity. We have to understand that when we say Korean society, it actually experienced robust economic growth from the 1960s up to the 1980s. So it was called compressed modernity because it brought physical transformation of the country, but at the same time the kind of physical transformation and economic growth brought political, economic, social, and moral safety related concerns amongst Koreans. Okay, so Koreans are traditionally regarded as a homogeneous society, meaning they speak the same language, they come from one specific race. So they're also influenced heavily by the Confucian values and at the same time Western influence. So let's talk about the Confucian influence in the Korean society. So the Korean society is highly hierarchical. They also practice filial piety and emphasis on education, scholarship, and also role of men and women. So the Korean society is highly hierarchical, meaning you have to also pay attention to the age of the people, like your friends. You cannot just call that person or use a specific language for that person because of his or her age. So you really have to like identify first. So the first thing that you have to identify when you like start socializing in Korea is like how old he or she, di ba? How old is your friend? You have to know because it's really important among Koreans to actually know kung ilang taon ka na so that they would use proper honorific language or at least more respectable language when you start conversations. Filial piety, meaning you respect your parents and your older brothers and sisters. Okay, so you also pay respect to older generations of Koreans. Also, part of the Confucian influence of in Korea is the emphasis on education and scholarship. So in Korea, education is really important. You would see a lot of like mga academies, and at a very young age, the Korean children are already exposed to several educational programs. So the parents would send them to academies or after school programs so that their children would be able to advantage over the other. So yun. There are also a lot of research institutes in Korea. Okay, so the research institutes are the ones, parang source of information and also researches from the government. Also, there's the Confucian influence also somehow defined the role of men and women in the Korean society. Men is always the head of the family and the source of authority in the family. So while women is also expected to somehow perform a specific role, and most of the time that is to raise children, and you do the usual household chores. But then again, because of the Western influence, that specific role of men and women has already been changing, and later on I will further discuss about that specific changes. So let's talk about the trends and issues in the Korean society. Actually, when you talk about the Korean society, we cannot, you know, um, discuss everything for 10 minutes. But let's try to discuss what exactly are the important issues that are confronting the Korean society. So in 2015, there's what we call Hell Choson. So this is a neologism depicting the harsh reality of the Korean society. Basically, this one started online, and it was started by young generations of Koreans because of their idea of, their vision of their society. What exactly are the negative things that they are experiencing in their country? Like, for example, the growing inequality. A lot of young generations of Koreans can, achieve um, something because of the fact that they really have to like work hard in order to to gain something. But then even if they gain something, they have to work further. So it's like an unending struggle for them to basically succeed in the Korean society. So they call it Hell Choson. It started in 2010, but it became popular in 2015 because of the corruption scandal of the Park Geun-hye regime, okay, the Park Geun-hye um, administration. Another issue that confronts the Korean society is the idea of the feminist movement. You're familiar with the Me Too movement, right, in the West or in the United States, and but that also captured the attention of many Korean women. So they also started their own Me Too movement and hashtag My Life Is Not Your Porn, because if you're going to look at the Korean society, they're also somehow they also have to deal with sexual harassment cases against women. When I was there, I think the Ministry of Gender Equality implemented a policy together with the Ministry of Labor to basically conduct sexual harassment seminar for all companies. Okay, because there are several complaints of sexual harassment against women. So it's a protest. The feminist movement created this Me Too movement to protest the growing cases of sexual harassment against women. And there's also kind of situation that when um, women are actually
So,
reporting sexual
question 2 po.
harassment against them, sometimes the human resources of like a specific company would take it against them. Okay, so it was a bit difficult for women to basically report to their own company. So I think this type of movement somehow an avenue for them to release, the stress or the dissatisfaction to the current system. My life is not your porn is also a hashtag used, and this happened because of the cases of spy cameras in women's toilet. So there were cases, in fact, in Gangnam particularly, where um, toilet of women are somehow they I mean men there are specific men who installed spy cameras. And then there's also Free the Corset movement. The Free the Corset movement is more like a radical feminist view where they wanted to somehow be free from the social standards of beauty. Because in Korea there's already a standard of beauty, right? They wanted to have a double eyelid, they want to have like a medyo slim face. And so because of that kind of standards, there are women that are kind of becoming unsatisfied with with their faces. So parang they um, instead of having this kind of situation, they started this Free the Corset movement. They started to destroy all their makeups. They started to cut their hair short in order to prove that there's no real standard of beauty for Korean women. So whatever hairstyle they have, that can still be considered beauty. Of course, this type of movement, we're not actually, we're somehow faced by backlash or societal backlash. Like there's a movement, what they call meninist movement, right? There are men opposing the idea of the Free the Corset movement and the Me Too movement because they're saying um, we're not actually imposing a standard of beauty for women. You're the one imposing it to yourself. So that created a discourse exactly between men and women in Korean society. Next is the idea of plastic surgery. Um, as I mentioned, because of the kind of standard of beauty that Korean society created, and because of the competition in the Korean society, a lot of women, even men, in fact, are engaged into plastic surgery. So, how bad is or how popular plastic surgery in Korea? Well, usually they give it as a high school graduation gift to their children. Okay, um, what exactly motivates them to have this plastic surgeries? They wanted to basically be more beautiful, and at the same time they wanted to also have, they recognize that there is an intense competition in the Korean society. Like even if, for example, even in a job search, you have to put your picture in your resume, and by looking at the picture, you can easily be, not part of, a job selection process. Okay, so you will not be selected. So that kind of, imagine that kind of stress. So in 2022, there's a move that the subway metro will ban plastic surgery ads on subway stations because that necessarily do not send good message amongst the Korean public. Another issue that is quite pressing in the Korean society is the issue of suicide. According to statistics, Korea, there are 13,670 people who took their lives in 2018. And prior to that, there are about less than 13,000. And it was the first time, the first increase in 5 years. So the suicide rate rose to 9.5 to 26.6%. Okay. Um, it's really bad because, like in, for example, when I was there in Han River, there's always a message for people to basically don't commit suicide, because the Han River is apparently a popular place for them to commit suicide. In fact, when I was there back in 2013, I think around 231 people committed suicide in that river, Han River. So it was really that bad. In fact, there are high-profile suicide happen in Korea. There's the suicide of Roh Moo-hyun, the former president of Korea, the suicide of the mayor of Seoul, and also the suicide of K-pop idols. Okay, and that uh, high profile suicide to some extent is in fact encouraging um, suicide among groups of young generations. Okay, so there's already a move from the government to basically impose criminal sanctions to those what they call suicide pacts. Okay, yung mga grupo ng mga Koreans that would encourage you to join them in a suicide attempt. There's also a problem about the aging Korean population. Korea will become the world's most aging society by 2067, with the low birth rate coinciding with the fast aging population. So a lot of economists are saying this is like a, you know, winter demographic of Korea. So it's a huge problem in their society because number one, it would put a burden on their pension service, and at the same time, of course, it would lessen the production in the Korean economy. So, as an attempt to basically prevent the aging population to somehow hamper the economic growth of Korea, they started this multicultural society, or their attempt to adopt multiculturalism. So there's already an increasing number of multicultural families brought by, of course, or heightened by the Hallyu, right? There are instances kasi that particularly women from Southeast Asia, so they thought, marrying Korean men is actually good because of what they see from, social media and also several Korean TV series. So they started to look for Korean men. Unfortunately, some of those Korean men that actually marries are from rural areas. So because in rural areas, it's hard for Korean men to get married because the Korean women from rural areas tend to migrate to urban areas to find better, better situation for their lives. Yeah. However, so increase in multicultural families, they still experience higher level of social exclusion in general than the Korean families. There are policies created by the government for multicultural families, but then again, it has the development um, still has a long way to go because of certain situations, like for example, how the multicultural families would be integrated in the society, because the idea of we-ness or uri in Korea. So um, there are also issues of domestic violence among multicultural families. And I think maybe we can expound on that later during the question and answer. So that's it for my presentation. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Sir Mark. And now on to the question and answer the Kapihan series. I think we have one question here. This is a question from a student, our student. The question is, as Filipinos who were able to experience living in Korea, are there any similarities between our... So the question is addressed to both of you, perhaps. As Filipinos who were able to experience living in Korea, are there similarities between our...
Marian,
Oh,
you want to go first?
akala ko ikaw muna. Okay. For me, I think in terms of family values, we have similar family values. We respect our elders, we respect our older brothers and sisters. That's a very similar cultural trait, and I think that's also one of the reasons why we also are consuming these dramas, because we find that there are similarities in terms of our family situation. So I think that's one thing. Sir Marco naman.
Yeah, I think that idea of being close with your family is really similar to the Korean society. Also, maybe there are, I don't know if you can call it similar, but there are superstitions that are quite, I mean, that are also identical or maybe similar to our superstitious belief. But um, that one is kind of difficult to actually answer because, there are nuances of Korean society that we are not, familiar of because, because of the idea that they have this concept of we-ness, amongst their community. So, as a foreigner living in Korea, there might be instances where, you don't know exactly what is happening because you are excluded from that circle of, the community, something like that.
Yeah. So actually, I kind of want to echo the same thing when it comes to Korean and Philippine cultures. But probably I would like to add one more thing. I think Koreans and Filipinos also have that hospitable trademark, and also that love for food. That is why I think many Filipinos would also want to visit some gyupsal restaurants and such. Anyway, we have more questions here. These two questions are actually related with one another. So the first one is from Patrick Mendones. What are your thoughts on the cancel Korea trend that happened on social media last month? Koreans see a huge impact on the current popularity of Hallyu if ever the support of Filipino market will be pulled out. And then the second one is from Alisa Eusebio. It's more or less the same thing. In relation to the current issues concerning Korea, what are your insights regarding the recent issue about cancel Korea that we are involved in?
Okay. When it happened, we were discussing among ourselves, like with the other professors, regarding the concept of cancel Korea. Uh, well, in when I looked at the picture of that girl, I saw, yeah, the image that it was based on the Imperial Japan. In Korea, there is the concept of civil religion, and the belief, this concept that they have historical experience, that historical experience is not really forgotten. Unlike for Filipinos, that we have quite a short memory. For Koreans, they really have this memory on history. That it's really a very sensitive issue. In terms of the impact on the popularity, I think for Filipinos, we shouldn't also react so far immediately regarding those issues, because there are a lot of things that's happening in Korean society that if you're just a consumer of these dramas and K-pop, you won't really understand unless, of course, you are able to speak with people who know more about the Korean society. I think we have to remember that what we watch on these dramas, this K-pop, and all of this, we shouldn't romanticize. We shouldn't put them on a pedestal that as if they are the perfect human beings. We have to remember that these are in reality. There are different. They're also human beings like ourselves, and also in terms of the reaction, not many Koreans reacted violently to that post. So those things we have to weigh in things before we also react. Like for you IS students, I think you should always remember that as IS students, you should be able to look at things from different angles, not just because it was posted that way. You already are you're already reacting from your personal experience or your personal feelings rather. So those kind of things, you have to remember that there are a lot of things that happening in within the society that we should consider before we react also. Sir Mark, how about you? Sir Mark. This is Sir Mark.
Sir Mark, are you there?
Sir Mark. Sir Mark, how about your reaction? Actually, we were really discussing about it when it happened. We were discussing about it, and I think we also have to balance in. Should we be also violent reacting? You as IS students, you are not supposed to react violently. You are supposed to learn that Korean society is also like a multi-level. There are levels in the society that we have to understand. Like in what Sir Mark discussed, that there's a Confucian aspect, there's also a traditional aspect, and also modern influences. Okay.
Siguro I'll
Sir
just
Mark.
share something kasi while,
Mhm.
while we're waiting for Sir Mark, no?
Yeah
When we
nga
talk
eh.
about social and cultural practices, kasi we have to always understand that it's supposed to be it should vary from perspectives, because from our perspectives, because we have to understand that these are different practices as well. So we must, of course, be as objective as possible when it comes to issues such as this. Especially, it's not really helpful to the environment if we simply pile on hatred or cancel culture
Yeah.
with regards to issues like this. Sir Mark,
Sir Mark.
I think there's a problem perhaps with
Yeah,
this
I think
connection.
there's a problem. I know. If I may add, if I may add something on that, no, because uh, you know, that's a very trending topic naman yung cancel Korea. But as IS students, particularly you guys, uh, you should, or we should first understand the reason why such things happen. And if we will criticize, let's criticize with an objective perspective, right? With an objective lens. Kasi that's the key, or that's the key takeaway of all of us here in the field of international studies. Like, we don't have to generalize everything, because one way or another, there are also may mga kanya-kanya ding kakulangan at sabihin na natin na dark side, or medyo yung hindi ka proud na bahagi ng ating kultura. That's actually why we are holding this kind of activities, for us to have a more grounded understanding on multiculturalism, on the culture, society of our neighboring countries, and of course, how this culture or societies interact with our own selves, with our own societies and culture. All right. I think nandiyan na si Sir Mark. I think
Yeah.
we're ready.
Sir Mark.
Well, speaking of dark side, sir, since you mentioned, maybe Miss Marian can share with us some ideas about the dark side of Hallyu, perhaps.
Okay, yeah. In terms of the dark
Hello.
side of Hallyu, sige, si Mark. Mark, you want to answer first?
Sorry.
Ano?
I'm
Gusto mo ba?
back. Yeah. Anyway,
Welcome back.
about the cancel Korea thing.
Yeah.
I think it will not hurt the Korea-Philippine relations, because when you talk about Korea-Philippine relations, it has progressed since its
70.
establishment back in I don't know exactly what decade
70
is
years.
that, but um,
In 49. Since
the relations is quite strong. So this kind of parang trend of cancel Korea, I don't think everyone here in the Philippines is in fact talking about it. The same thing.
anymore.
Koreans are even talking about it. Although there are reports in the Korean media about cancel Korea thing. A lot of Koreans, in fact, if you're going to search on YouTube, a lot of Koreans were kind of apologetic about what happened, about the remarks that were, you know, um, given by Korean netizens. So I don't think the Philippine-Korea relations will have will be greatly affected by this cancel Korea thing. And
And
so
I
as
think
the
also,
and so as
just to add lang,
the consumption of Hallyu also.
ayun sir, just to add to that, in terms of impact on popularity, I think they are trying to parang appease the Filipino fans. Kasi I noticed in the latest Korean shows, mga kanang K-pop shows, parang they are trying to invoke yung Filipino words, ganyan. Parang, mahal kita, nagaganon na sila ngayon. I mean, before, I don't usually hear this. Parang, niisip ko lang, are they trying to appease Filipino fans? Parang because of this cancel Korea thing. Parang ganun lang. I think in terms of popular impact on popularity, I don't think that would do much because they are continuing their moves towards more Filipinos and more fans would still continue to consume them, especially because it really helps in the economy. To answer Sir Wayne's question about the dark side of K-pop, I remember there are news about the Korean, not just K-pop, but also some actresses, especially the new actresses who were being uh, they are made as escorts to this businessmen, ganyan, so that they will be debuted, something like that. It's happening also in K-pop, and I think also here in the Philippines, it's not really something new. So, yun, I think that's one of the dark side of K-pop that I could think of. Also, I think there were also news about some K-pop idols who were involved in the scandals. They have scandals, yun. But do they, the popularity of those K-pop idols were really affected. Like some of them have to leave their groups. They were asked to resign from their groups. But for the the whole K-pop industry, it wasn't really that badly affected. Just those who are involved in those scandals. How about Sir Mark? Maybe he also wants to share something about the dark side of K-pop. Aside
The
from
dark
the
side of
suicides,
K-pop, yeah, aside from the
aside from the
high
suicides,
profile suicides involving Korean idols, I think one of the dark side is, and I think the entertainment industry has been criticized severely because of this, the idea of rigorous training for Korean pop stars. You have to understand that when they undergo training to become K-pop idol, they need to undergo maybe around 2 years of intense training for dancing and for also for singing. they have to watch their diet. They have to like be basically there are several rules that they need to impose before, and there's no even guarantee that you're going to get the popularity that other Korean K-pops are enjoying right now. So I think
Yes.
that's one of the dark side, because there are instances where you have to undergo training, but you're not getting paid, right? So that's the that's the downside of it, I would say.
Just to clarify also, kasi I remember you mentioned about in the Korean society traditionally, because of the Confucianism, they were placing this emphasis on education and scholarship. But nowadays, because of the popularity of K-pop stars, because it is seen as really contributing to the economy, many Korean youth already are considering to become K-pop stars. So this is a new thing for the Korean society, from a very uh, traditionally Confucian society who just wants to get a good education. Nowadays, Korean youth are starting to consider being a K-pop star as their future career. So that's a new thing.
Yeah, I think not just Koreans, pero anyway, even
Here in the
Southeast
Philippines,
Asian,
right, diba?
bigger,
Yeah.
diba? Pero maybe we could have this next
Are you
question.
talking
This is
about the
from
P-pop idols? There are
some
P-pop
other
idols,
listeners.
doing trainings in Korea.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a next question from Micaela Sulit. Can you explain more about how Koreans, a very homogeneous society, react to its transformation into a multicultural society?
Sir Mark. Sir Mark, yung discussion mo.
Actually, well, how to put it? Like, there are instances na medyo nahihirapan silang i-accept yung multicultural families. Because of, most of the multicultural families came from Southeast Asia, as I mentioned, di ba? And sometimes yung the children of multicultural families, medyo iba yung kulay from South Koreans, and they can be easily identified. And sometimes their children are sort of bullying in schools. So yun yung medyo isa sa mga struggle ng Korean society. And as I mentioned, 'di ba, meron sila kasing um, idea ng we-ness, 'di ba? That is different from the what they call wegugin, or foreigners. So it's it's I mean, they're accepting it basically. But it's somehow difficult for some families or some Koreans to actually um, them as society.
Yeah. There are more questions here. Probably we could just limit them. These two questions are very similar. The first one is from Anissa. The question is, what do you think drives suicidal tendencies in Korea? Would pressure from society be considered a factor? And then this one is, are there any masked truths about Korean society that leads to high suicidal rate in Korea? How close are those reasons to our culture? This is from Erica.
I didn't get the other question. Sorry.
The
Mass
second
truth.
question, yeah,
Second question.
mass truths about the Korean society that leads to high suicidal rate in Korea. How close are those reasons to our culture?
Um, as I mentioned a while ago, the Korean society, because of the transformation that happened, it brought, I mean, because of the economic development and the fast changing environment, it has put a lot of pressure from the people, particularly the young generation of Koreans. Kaya if you're going to look at the situation, a lot of Koreans, the young generations are committing suicide because of the pressure coming from the society, the family. You have to be like this if you want to succeed, so on and so forth. So I think that's the major kind of factor why a lot of young generations are committing suicide. Is there like a
For
similarity?
I
Yeah.
think for in terms of just to add based on the research I've done before, suicides in Korea, specifically the earlier ones of the high profile suicides, most of them are connected to the concept of chemyon, or the concept of face, of this image that, yeah, what you've been discussing, that in the society, this is what you should be doing, and this is what's accepted in the society if you don't do this. And that's why some of the politicians, that's why they committed suicide, because they were being accused of corruption. So instead of justifying why it happened and all, they just committed suicide. But in terms of some of the K-pop idols, it really is the pressure from the society, because are driven by the hate comments and all this negativities that they get from the fans, from the netizens. Those are the new developments in terms of the suicides of this K-pop stars. So yun, I think
Actually, speaking of
as netizens, you have to be also careful what you post. I mean, you don't know how difficult the lives of these Korean stars have been before you give this negative comments. You also have to be careful that they're also human beings after all.
and also Marian, you don't underestimate the Korean fan. When di ba,
Yeah,
parang
the fans.
they're
Yeah.
totally, yeah, they're totally um it's some Korean fans are like bordering obsession na. They're
True. That's true.
going to the like the house of the Korean idol, and then
Yeah.
they would do something parang more on like putting a mark as their, parang considering it as their territory or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
May mga ganong cases.
Yeah, actually, 'di ba yung ibang K-pop star nalaman lang na they're having a family and all, parang pinapaalis na dun sa K-pop group. Those kind of things. The fans are fanatics. Yun talaga, fanatics. I hope as IS students you won't become like them. 'Di ba? I hope you become as fans, you at least you understand all of these things.
Yeah.
Yeah. The next question is from Kay. Given the historical animosity between Japan and Korea, how does the presence of Korean culture, e.g., through K-pop and Korean talents in Japan, help in de-escalating the tension or animosity in the individual level? Does it really help?
See, that's quite tricky question. That's actually quite tricky to answer because in the news every time we know already that the K-pop stars, the K-dramas are very popular in Japan. But whenever a prime minister would visit the Yasukuni Shrine, or all of the issues all of these issues which is connected to the colonial Japan experience of Korea, Koreans really react negatively to it. So even though, and I'm not sure with the Japanese public, because I haven't really done much research on that aspect, if um, they are still react, because for example, in the history books in Japanese society, they were educated in such a way that they don't really know much about what happened, about their record outside of Japan during the war. So that kind of things, it's actually quite tricky to say that the relations are already better just because the Korean stars are popular in Japan. How about Sir Mark? Do you want to share
Sorry,
your
what's the question again? Sorry.
about the about the entry of Korean culture into Japan? Did it help in easing the tension or normalizing the relation?
Um, yeah, I agree with Marian. It's a tricky question because if you're going to look at the situation, the um, the pragmatic relationship of Japan and Korea is still there. I mean, um, whenever something comes up in Japan that somehow touches historical, historical accounts of the Korean society, there would be societal backlash in Korea, and not just in Korea, and to some extent, um, the people of China are also somehow, you know, um, protesting against the Japanese government. You know, I think the thing with the East Asians is that they know how to kind of put a compartmentalize their relationship. Like, they know that there are issues in their political and security situation, but they would continue to be cordial with with each other when you talk about economic trade um, relations, right? So in that case, I would say, enjoying the culture, the Korean culture, the K-pop or the Hallyu, it's still there. The Japanese people are in, but reaches um, uh, if there's no concrete answer to it.
Here's another question. This is from Sydney. How receptive is Korean society with the idea of LGBTQIA plus community, given that their culture and way of life is driven by Confucianism and is highly patriarchal?
I think just based on experience, now I think they are slowly, still very slowly moving towards accepting them. There are some stars who are considered who parang they are actually, I think, have you heard of this play called Jamie, the Korean adaptation of the play Jamie, wherein the K-pop idols had to dress as gays. Parang I think the Korean public are not so open still in terms of perception to Jamie. Parang yun. Parang hindi pa rin siya ganun ka-open. But there are stars who are starting to admit that they are gay. But pero this is still very rare in the society. So in terms of LGBTQIA in Korea, medyo it's still very. That's why before I was asking some students, I think last year I was asking some students to find out if being in the Philippines give a safe haven for this LGBTQIA people, Koreans who are here. I think some of them did the research.
I think there was a time when LGBT is at kind of taboo in the Korean society. They don't think, or they reject the idea that it exists in the Korean society. Okay, but times are changing. There are now like Pride March in but of course you can still, I mean, they still face resistance, specifically from Christian groups. So when they conduct like Pride March in Shincheon area or in City Hall, you expect that there are, Korean conservatives coming from the Christian groups protesting on the other side of the street, like says you will burn in hell, something like that. So yeah.
But I think there's a gay club already in Korea, in Seoul. So maybe there
There
are
are
already
there are
moves.
many, but the thing is, the primary consumers of that,
Or
what I heard,
foreigners.
are foreigners because it's located in Itaewon
I
area.
think in ano ba tong area na to? um, yung sa ano, I forgot that university. I think in one of the university areas also, they have the gay
I
club.
forgot to mention there's one Korean artist before, a Korean actor um, who professed that he's actually gay, but eventually he kind of lose his popularity because of that. Well, good thing that he owns a restaurant, and he does it. But nowadays, I think, as I mentioned, it's already
Slowly,
changing. He's
slowly.
slowly having a comeback in the Korean media scene.
So we actually have limited time left, so I will only read around one or two more questions. Perhaps the other questions can be answered by Miss Marian and Sir Mark via email, siguro. This question is from Sheena. The question is it possible for Korean pop culture to broaden its influence much more than Western or Hollywood stars in terms of the entertainment? Is it possible for K-pop culture to broaden its influence much more than the Western or Hollywood stars did in terms of the entertainment industry?
Actually, nowadays there is a talk about Hallyu 4.0. We know we are currently in the Hallyu 3.0. They're looking at what are the prospects, what is beyond what we have now. And for now, that question is still a question. It's we do not know yet what will happen in the future, but we know that Korea is really trying its best so that they will be internationally more competitive. The directors are already being able to enter into the international scene, like what we have Parasite, and BTS is already very popular even though the consumers do not understand the language. I was really surprised, like how did BTS became very popular outside of Korea. And yeah, that in that aspect, we do not know yet what will happen beyond Hallyu 3.0. But what we know is the Korean government is really trying hard so that trying hard, especially with the help of the chaebols and other people in the industry who are trying to work hard so that the stars and the cultural export will further. And as I mentioned in my presentation before, it was just it did not really include literature. Now you have literature, so they have already diversified, and we do not know how how well it will do in the future. But we know that the government will not also stop with just what we have now.
Yeah.
I think
So
in terms of potential, I think there is a potential. But the thing is, it will take a long time perhaps to have that kind of stature the way that the Hollywood is actually enjoying right now. Mm-mm. Because kumbaga sa ano, as mentioned by Miss Marian Gongora, it's still starting in the international scene, right? Like the recognition of the Parasite, and perhaps yung popularity ng Train to Busan, 'di ba? Yun.
yeah. So I'll read one last question. Suero. Recently, an idol wore a nurse outfit on their music video. The Korean Nurses Association filed a complaint about this, for it represents quote and unquote sexual objectification of women, nurses, and their entertainment company immediately took down the scene from the music video. However, international fans reacted violently about this. What are your thoughts about the clash between the perspective of a liberalized and conservative fans? How about the uh, cultural appropriation on K-pop music videos? So twofold yung question niya. One is sexual objectification. The second one is cultural appropriation.
In terms of K-pop, I think as we mentioned before, that it's one of the dark side of K-pops. sexual objectification of women. I, as a woman and as a researcher, one of my interests is on feminism. I really also find it. I was really uncomfortable with the objectification, but it sells. This package sells, and I think also in connection to that, not just the nursing of the star who were nursing. I think also there was an issue online before wherein this group of new idols had to wear short skirts, and then they had and the camera had to wanted to show their legs, but one of the members, I think someone wanted them to cover the legs, and then the producer, or they found out that it's actually the boss, got mad because they were trying to cover the legs. So parang, it sells because it sells. People buy this packaging that the women are sexy, and if you would notice, Korean stars, they usually, but even the moves are actually sometimes not so far from the traditional, it's really far from the traditional Korean culture already. It's very Western already. So sexual objectification, it's a dark side of K-pop, but because it sells, then I don't know how will this be fought if the actresses or the idols themselves really allow it, because it sells. They make money out of it.
Mm-mm.
Sir Mark?
I think I agree with Marian. And I couldn't add more to it.
What about cultural appropriation, sir? The second one.
Cultural appropriations. Well, um, in the Korean society, I think there's no kind of uproar or discourse being created because of that situation, right? So, but I know in some Western culture they would somehow raise that point, that there's a cultural appropriation. Uh, yeah.
Since we have 5 minutes, I'll just read one last question. I'll just generalize it or summarize it so that it's easier for you to answer. The question is about Filipinos who would adapt the K-pop or K products, such as skincare routine or skincare products, food products, and so on. Probably this is just some reaction, perhaps.
Ano yun? Sorry. I
Well,
didn't
yeah,
get
Insights or reaction regarding the influence of K-pop to Filipinos and yung products, kumbaga,
use of beauty products.
and food products, yun yung nakalagay. And learning the Korean language, ganyan.
I think that's what I mentioned with Marian a while ago. When we consume Korean products, or the Korean whatever Korean how do you call that? Anyway, products
culture.
available.
Products.
Culture, yeah. Ano, let's learn how to appreciate it, and try to understand exactly how, for instance, if you're consuming Korean cultural products or yung mga teleserye, you try to understand also, because there's a lot to it, than just having those fancy locations. Because if you're going to look at, and this is what I was trying to mention to Marian before, these Korean teleseries are in fact funded by the government, to showcase yung kanilang mga good um, tourist destinations, di ba? So that to attract more tourists to Korea, and it worked, di ba? So but then again, if you're going to look at the situation, whether it's somehow reflects the reality of the Korean society, you have to also examine it. You have to do also some kind of, research to it so that you better understand. Okay.
Thank you so much, Sir Mark and Miss Marian, for the very insightful discussion that we had this evening, afternoon/evening. So, Sir Kiko, do you have something to say or share
Add.
or add?
All right. I just wanna take this opportunity to just really thank our two speakers for today, Miss Marian, and of course, Sir Mark, and of course also to our moderator, Sir Wayne. Thank you for the insights. I'm really glad to see how engaging the discussion was, and it was really uplifting to see also how the students were reacting and how the students were really taking a keen interest on this topic, on this project itself, on the Faculty Kapihan series that we're having. So for our dear students, of course, for our guests from even outside FEU, this is just our first of hopefully more Kapihan series, because we really want to engage, to engage not only inside the classroom but as well as in platforms such as this, and in activities that are easy to understand and easy for us to have a grasp on. No? So stay tuned for our next episodes of this Kapihan series. Definitely, there will be more. You'll be hearing more from our colleagues, from our faculty members, and you'll be surprised on the range and on the depth of their understanding and specializations on different topics concerning international studies. Right? So thank you very much.
Siguro I'll just close, no? The Korean wave or Hallyu has introduced to us a world that is quite similar and at the same time different. Familial relations, values, and other elements of Korean society can easily be identified and seen through the commercialization of Korean products through Hallyu. It is through also the Hallyu that we learn more about our neighbors. However, it is also important to mention that images and sounds of what is Korean as depicted through the media is not necessarily what is Korean. We have to understand and remember that culture is a very difficult construct to explain and understand, and that subjective elements would always be there. So we have to understand these elements would also be evolving. So it is through these webinars, lessons, or issues that we understand that there are so many things out there that we still need to understand. So I do hope that you join us for our next Kapihan series. So thank you for joining. Bye and good evening.
Thank you very much.
Uh,
Thank you.
can I just request those who are still in the room, can we just have a very quick group photo to you may opt to open your cameras